My journey started in Anna Bay, just north of Newcastle. This is the northern four-wheel drive beach access to Stockton Beach. Wrong way, mate. Try that one. Even though you are on the beach, same road rules apply. Stockton Beach is a national park, so you need a permit for your vehicle to drive on the beach, and you can purchase that in a local petrol station. Rangers will check your permit just before you hit the tricky sand, and also roam the beach, making sure no one is doing dangerous stuff. Maximum speed limit is 80 km per hour, and you can enjoy almost 30 km of sand, beach and ocean. I got lucky to have a low tide just turning, so the beach is twice as wide and hard-packed close to water, which is much more easier to ride than the deep soft sand on the right. Do not ride in the water unless you can wash the bike right away. After almost 30 km on the beach, I'm at the most southern part where you are allowed to drive, heading up into the dunes. The soft sand is not easy to handle. You need to have a speed to stay on top of the sand. The sun and color of the sand makes it hard to recognize anything on the ground. You have to be careful coming over dunes, as there may be a drop, but you see nothing. After some nice shots, I've returned back 30 km to Anna Bay, and on the way there were times when I didn't see a car for 10 km. Kinda scary, being in the middle of nowhere, just sand and ocean. This is Samurai Beach, a clothing optional beach. It's popular, not sure if it's because of naked people or because you don't need a permit to drive there. A couple days later, I'm cruising the snowy mountains. I thought I escaped the heat of the coast, but it felt the same. My first peak was Blue Rag. Getting there on a motorbike was a little challenging, but less fun than doing it in a four-wheel drive. The views are breathtaking. After a little snack, I'm headed back and keeping to the right towards Dargo, where I plan to have lunch and refuel. Following the ridge track for 20 or so kilometers, it comes to an end, and now dropping down in the valley to the Crooked River. Coming down these steps, it gets worse every time. That layer of dust is like an ice, no traction at all. I've managed to scramble that downhill safely, and now I just follow the crooked river with many crossings along the way, all the way to Dargo. Here I can have a nice lunch with a beer, refuel, and be back on the road to my base camp. Next day I've planned to reach local peaks around Bright. I cross this creek and follow it to the end of this valley. The track turns into a long hill climb. After 20 kilometers or so, I reach the stony top peak. The peak is a dead end, so I have to return back down in the valley and take a turn. The track is taking me all the way up again. Following the ridge track for another 20 k's, I find this powerline lookout. Down there is the Mount Beauty. This is calm before the storm. Coming down this steep hill was not easy. The top was okay, but the bottom part, which is not on camera, was full of loose rocks, very hard to stay straight. But with a little luck, or maybe a skill, I didn't fall. And after some cruising, I reach another peak, Mount Hotham. I feel confident after 2 days of riding by myself. Of course, I've got a backup plan in case of emergency. I've got a CB radio to reach local emergency frequencies, which are monitored by people on watchtowers, just like the one on Mount Hotham. and the Garmin satellite SOS communicator if it gets real shitty. This was just an attempt to take a shortcut over the peak rather than going around on the main fire trail. This track was just too steep and loose to keep momentum, and I didn't want to risk it. The bike just keeps sliding sideways, no chance to point the front wheel down the hill and ride it. The temperature was around 30 degrees, so this little workout takes some energy out of you. I just need a shade and a small break. After crossing the valley from the opposite side, I found a nice lookout overlooking the small alpine town of Bright. The final descent was really steep, but fun. I enjoyed it so much that I was a little too fast for the drone to follow me. Normally it flies at your head level, but as I'm going down, it just cannot maintain the low level and wanders into the highs. I can just hear him buzzing, knowing it's there somewhere, so I just keep going. Eventually, when I stop to collect it, it just hangs high up in the air, and I had to walk up the hill to get him to fly back to me and land it. The footage looks awesome though. This is the final stroll to get out of this track and head back to camp. This is my last day riding in this area, and I started with a banger. Look at this view. The track from this peak takes me to another valley. with stunning views, easy riding and awesome backdrops. After crossing the creek at the bottom of the valley, I climb up to the next ridge, where I make a turn and continue for the next 30 kilometers or so, with fast sections and challenging up and down hills. This is one of the shortcuts over the peak again. I challenge myself to ride it up. I get stuck 3/4 of the way. I get the drone out to at least get the footage of it on the way down. The drone hits a scrub and do a spinner. I have no idea and continue down, only realizing it down there. I turn around and come up to get him. I see he's locked onto me again, and I let it finish the job. This was the last peak I've tried to conquer, without success. So from here on, it is a downhill all the way to the main sealed road to Bright. I can now relax and enjoy the last bit of the scenery and snowy mountains bush. I've been very fortunate to ride this beautiful part of Australia, the snowy mountains, by myself. I would not recommend riding this track by yourself if you are not skilled enough to fix your bike and have no way of communicating if everything goes south. I've prepared my bike for this trip. I've had spare tubes, levers, screws and tools with me. I've had no defects, bike was running smoothly, no injury, and the weather was playing along too. This was the ultimate escape a man can do, clearing your head, riding a bike and only relying on yourself, your skills, your knowledge and your mind.